So, hello everybody and welcome to our latest podcast. My name's Chloe and I work as the branch manager here at Wolverhampton Pertemps, looking after our temporary division. I'm joined this afternoon by Emma, who works for a local business called Atlas Copco, currently there as a design engineer. Emma, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to start off by asking a few questions about your early years and what inspired you to get into engineering. So, Emma, could you tell me a little bit more about your secondary school experience, first of all?
My secondary school experience didn't honestly lead me onto the path of engineering. That came a little bit later in college, but one of my biggest inspirations was a year 8 maths teacher, Mrs. Tromans, and she previously to becoming a teacher, she was originally an optometrist, and at that point, at the ripe age of 12, 13, I thought I wanted to become an optometrist as well, because with her help and her inspiration, I'd not only moved up in the world of maths, but I'd also moved up in levels at school. So it made me more academic in that respect. And from there, when it came to picking subjects, because I was already doing things like maths and science anyway, I picked subjects which, in all honesty, you look at and go, not necessarily suitable for engineering. One being business studies, a little bit applicable, and the other being health and social care, and that's because I thought I might be good at it. But I went drama, so a bit theatric, but it helps when you do things like this. But my inspiration for engineering didn't actually come until later on when I was already in college. So after finishing at Hillcrest School in Netherton, now known as the Link Academy, I then went to King Ed's College in Stourbridge.
Yeah, I know it well.
I started studying human biology, physics and maths, a good basis for optometry, but also conveniently engineering. But it came to a careers day and they'd got local unis in, they'd got professionals in, all sorts of subjects, and they were generally segregated to, like, you had like a STEM area and then maybe an arts elsewhere, business and other different areas. So I'm already in the STEM area and I got talking to I think it was Aston Uni, because it was one of very few unis in the country that actually ran an optometry program.
Mm-hmm.
And it was obvious from the get-go I did not have the grades to get on that course.
Right.
Which it feels sad at first, but the next part is kind of a bit, oh, okay. At that point, I'd already also considered a job in physiotherapy, and I spoke to a physiotherapist at that same careers day, and it was instantly, well, you should have already taken PE, and I hadn't, and I didn't want to. So
Yeah.
we weren't going that way. And then I was just kind of like floating around the STEM area, and I got talking to a gentleman, and he said, you know, what are you studying? I said, I'm studying maths, physics, and human biology. And I went, okay. But what else do you do? What are your interests? What are your hobbies? And at that point, and to this day, I design and make my own jewellery in my free time.
Brilliant.
And he said, you do know you've got a brilliant basis for a career in engineering. And he stood and we spoke for about a good half an hour, and he's giving me leaflets. He was telling me about lectures to go to and look up on the internet as well. And he just happened to be one of my future lecturers at Wolverhampton University, Dr.
Oh, that's
Tarson.
brilliant.
And to be fair, he was actually a big inspiration in that. And later on, after I'd taken away, I'd really looked through literature, I'd looked at the course, and had gone to an open day, I'd done a few guest lectures, and I was talking to my maths lecturer there at King Ed's, and I said, I think I'm considering a career in engineering. She said, the way you work, pure maths is no good. Engineering makes more sense for you because of the way your mind works. And she was absolutely right.
Wow. I think it's absolutely fantastic that, even in those early years, being at an open day with the universities at King Ed's, that people, definitely think that within the engineering sector, engineers know engineers, don't they? They know how each other's brains work. And the fact that just from describing your hobby, somebody's, suggested that to you, as a career path, and then, later down the line, but it actually becomes your tutor as well, is just absolutely fantastic. So obviously on the back of that conversation, which university did you opt for in the end?
It was Wolverhampton
It
University
was
in the end.
Wolverhampton, yeah. And what course did you do at Wolverhampton University?
I did a bachelor's in engineering in mechanical engineering.
Right, okay, fantastic. And talk to us about that course. So what is the makeup of, the duration of what you studied there, and how was it kind of separated in terms of academic, paperwork and practical?
Okay, so it's a 3-year course. Obviously, final year is your final project, and that takes most of your time. But the first 2 years, you do 4 modules each term, so a total of 8. And in the last one, you do, I think it's about 6, with the final project taking up the time of 2 across the entire year. Modules could range with maths and mechanics, fluids and dynamics. There's even a couple of modules looking into electronics as well, and control systems. Just gave you that like little taster, because it also gave us the chance, if we wanted to explore other courses, especially in our first year, to look at those as well. Trying to remember all the modules. We're talking a good 10 years
Sounds
plus
like
now.
it sounds like it's really, like you say, all-rounded though, to kind of give you that first introduction to engineering. Was there any, as you kind of went on to do your course, was there anything that stuck out to you as your favourite at that point?
I didn't like it at first, but the design module, which was using CAD, which I now use every single day, I didn't like, but it's because I didn't have much experience with it. And one of the biggest wins in my very first year was because I didn't get it. I would spend some of my days where I didn't have lectures, and I would go and spend an entire day in the CAD suite when it was available, and just try and get all the exercises done, get the projects done, get it complete. And I think it was my first A. I'd got high Bs throughout my other modules so far, and we'd come back after Christmas and log in on to see if the grades would be updated, and design I'd got an A, and it was because
Oh,
I'd put
wow.
all that work in. And it was quite, well, I can do this.
Yeah.
And now I use it every day.
Look at you now, look at you now.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fantastic, and well done for, pursuing with it, because I think as a young female, especially going into engineering, there are undoubtedly many challenges that you come across, and the fact that you overcame that one independently, used your own
Mm.
time, absolutely brilliant. I suppose that leads me on to my next question. So the course that you chose to do, what was the
Mm.
makeup of people that were on that course? Were there many other females that were in there as well?
There were 3 other women on the course,
Yeah,
and one was a part-timer, so she wasn't always there.
got you.
And it was out of a course of about 50 people.
Wow.
But in all honesty, it really didn't bother me much, because you know what, the gents were never going to say anything especially because on my course, I don't know if it's at Wolverhampton specifically because of the area we live in. It's very industrial. A lot of the people on the courses are part-timers anyway, because they're on day release from work. There weren't actually that many full-timers, but
Right.
they don't mind if you're not turning up looking like a model, full face of makeup. They understand that I was 18, I'd just gone to uni, and I was probably a little bit hungover, in all honesty, the first week. I'm not going to lie. But a lot of them are like, I'm old enough to be your dad. I wish I was where you are now. And
I suppose though, sometimes when it's that kind of variation of people, such a, all over the place demographic, that you
yeah.
did you find that, it was actually quite encouraging to have other people share their experience and knowledge with you as well? Did you come across that much, or was it very independent? This is my course, this is what I'm doing, and you didn't really get involved with other people?
It was really interesting because, especially talking to those who are on day release, it was like hearing what they did. as a job, what the jobs were like. And even though I was unable to get a year in the industry, I don't want to say I lived it, but you heard about people's experience, you heard what they did, you heard what the job was like, and it kind of helped in like, okay, this is what employers are looking for, this is what I'd be doing or potentially doing in a future role. What was handy was in my first year, we had a group exercise, and one of the members of the group was able to get us a tour of his factory, and it was
Wow.
for hydraulics in tractors. I can't remember the name of the company, but I remember visiting, and we had a full tour. We saw what he did, and we used that as a part of the project. And it gave us the chance to go and see a workplace, see how they worked, which was quite useful.
Yeah.
Also, when you're working with groups like that, all these different experiences was really helpful.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did you have any specific challenges over the course of your university time that you encountered with being, a minority in terms of the makeup of the course? Were there any challenges that you did face at all?
I don't want to say that I don't recall anything where my gender became an issue in my course. I feel like I've noticed it more in the workplace than
Okay.
anywhere. Where it's become obvious, where it's that I'm not as physically strong when it comes to lifting items. That comes up occasionally, not as much now because obviously, good workplaces have lifting instruments, so it's not a huge thing. But you start to hear it in the occasional comments, and even if they don't mean anything by it, that's when it gets you, especially when a lot of people are saying that girls are getting more attention now, and I don't think that is the case at all. I think people are realising we want those jobs as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like there is no reason why anyone, no matter what their gender, should be overlooked for a position.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And that's more where I've noticed it.
Yeah. No, I would completely agree. I would completely agree. So, what I want to talk about next is your first job. So, your first role within engineering. It
Okay.
obviously must have been a very exciting time for you. Was it just after you'd graduated that you'd got your first
It was
role?
a little bit of a gap at first.
Yeah,
I graduated in the September and I got a role in the following April in 2012, and it was with a company called Mechatherm, and they designed and built aluminium furnaces internationally.
brilliant. And what was your position with them?
Design engineer.
A design engineer. So had you finished university knowing that design engineer was the role that you wanted and you were kind of hunting for that opportunity, or is it something that you came across it and it just happened to work really well for you?
After my win with CAD, my final year project was actually about materials.
Mhm.
And I've used that onwards to thought that was more the way I wanted to go. So designing, not just the case of drawing and figuring out shapes and sizes and things like that, but also figuring out materials and which way is best to use, what's best where, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant. And then how long did you stay with that business for?
I was with them until March 2015, so just under 3 years. Unfortunately, the role was lost due to redundancies.
Got you.
One door closes, another opens, and I was able to get a job here with Atlas Copco.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Mhm.
And I do know of Atlas Copco, but in your own words, tell us a little bit about who Atlas Copco are and what they do.
Atlas Copco are in everything, I swear. And when I told a friend I'd got a job with Atlas Copco, they were like, "Oh, so you're working with compressors?" No, but that's what Atlas Copco do. Yeah, but they do everything. They don't just do compressors. So yes, they do compressors. They have fingers in all the pies. I constantly get emails saying we've bought another pump company or a vacuum company, or I can't even think of all the products they do.
Mhm.
So I'll just tell you what we do here at Bolton Solutions. It's probably going to be a lot easier. So my job is to design, and I also work with the compliance and documentation of bolt tensioners. And just a small explanation, if you think of like a bolt and a nut, on a flange or a surface, and you think you use a spanner to wind that nut down. What
Mhm.
our tools do, they connect to the bolt, and with using hydraulics, they stretch the bolt, and then we can wind down the nut, leaving an exact load in that nut after the removal of the tensioner, and it stops everything from moving.
Mhm.
And that's just a very, very basic rundown of what they do.
Yeah.
We also do torque wrenches, which is not my role, but here at Bolton Solutions we also do them, and that's another form of nut rundown. We also have flange spreaders, pull flanges apart, so the opposite.
Mhm.
What else do we do? Pumps for these to work. So much.
Yeah. All
I
sort.
should have
All
got the
sorts.
website up and just listed it all off. It'd be easier.
That's okay. That's okay. You've given us a really good overview of Atlas anyway. So your day to day then as a design engineer for Atlas Copco in the department that you're in, what does your typical day to day look like?
So a typical day, if we're looking at from the design perspective, we have a work list, and when a job comes on, one of us will pick it up and we'll go through what the customer is asking for. It's really nice when they tell us what they want. Basic information is things like bolt size, dimensions, application that it will sit on, dimensions. And we'll design the tensioner to meet those needs. They'll also tell us information like what pressure they want to work at and what load they'd like to achieve. And we work out if it is one possible and what kind we can design them and do the job. And this will involve drawing up parts, creating an assembly, making the drawing, writing the design down, very important, and creating a document to send to the customer. On the other side of things, I also work with documentation. So this involves getting what people call a manual essentially created. So our tools can be sold with correct documentation so they know how to use it.
That's also very important.
Mm.
Perfect. So I suppose just to kind of move away from Atlas Copco and your role with them, I want to ask some questions now as to your advice and your guidance for young females that are considering a career within engineering. So what would you have said, if anything at all, to your younger self throughout those early years as a piece of just overall advice?
One piece of advice I kept receiving, but I don't think it was helpful at all, was because you're a woman going into a man's industry, you're going to have to work harder than anyone else. And that can create an anxiety
Mhm.
there's no need for.
Yeah.
Do your best, be honest if you don't know, and ask for help. And that's all you need, because at the end of the day, we're just the same as the blokes, and they will do that, and they won't even have two thoughts about it.
Mhm. I think that's really, really good. Really, really good
Yeah,
advice to give somebody, definitely. There's a lot of just thinking about kind of the phrase that was used, you're going into a man's world, essentially.
yeah.
What would you say to somebody that did say that engineering is for boys?
To be fair, I'd like them to see them how they work the programs I use and see them struggle. No, it's not a man's world at all. People can use the arguments of, well, men are stronger. We've got equipment for that. We don't need to. No one needs to be stronger in that respect. At the end of the day, if you can do the math, if you can apply yourself, and you have a genuine interest in this, there is no reason why you can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's completely right, and I think
Mm.
that having had this conversation with you, you are such an inspiration to younger generations because of, your mentality is very much, anybody can do it, and I think it's such an important note to give to people, a message to send to others. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
joining me and getting that message out there, because yeah, I think that your journey's been incredible, and we need more people like you, Emma.
The other thing I'd say when giving anyone advice when people say, "Oh, it's a man's world," is it?
Yeah.
And ask them why is it? it's a bit of critical thinking there, which is actually very important to our role. It's another thing I'd like to add there.
It's breaking the stigma, isn't it, I think?
Yes, and it's not a dirty job. It can be a dirty job. That's one. I've done a few school visits to try and get the kids encouraged into thinking about engineering as a course and a career. And one of the things I hear from girls, especially, is, "Oh, it's a dirty job," or "It's like what my dad does," or "It's just cars." It's just cars. And it's like, no, it's not. And this is why it's not. And it's a dirty job. Yeah, it can be a dirty job. I can have dirty days. I'm not going to argue with that. But there are plenty of the roles within engineering that
Yeah.
are not filthy at all. Like my previous role when I worked at Pertemps, I did do 9 months working on site. Prior to that, I just worked in the office just as a designer. Didn't get dirty at all. But the 9 months on site was cold.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. There's so much
Yeah.
variation though, isn't there, that I think people, if you are at school and you are considering, going into a role within engineering, engineering is such a broad term.
Mm.
So, part of the reason that we're doing what we're doing is that so that people start asking a bit more questions about engineering, the different types of engineering, what does it involve?
The other thing I'd say when giving anyone advice when people say, "Oh, it's a man's world," is it? And ask them why is it? It's a bit of critical thinking there, which is actually very important to our role. It's another thing I'd like to add there.
It's breaking the stigma, isn't it, I think?
Yes, and it's not a dirty job. It can be a dirty job. And that's one. I've done a few school visits to try and get the kids encouraged into thinking about engineering as a course and a career. And one of the things I hear from girls, especially, is, "Oh, it's a dirty job," or "It's like what my dad does," or "It's just cars." It's like, no, it's not. And this is why it's not. And it's a dirty job. Yeah, it can be a dirty job. I can have dirty days. I'm not going to argue with that. But there are plenty of the roles within engineering that are not filthy at all. Like my previous role when I worked at Pertemps, I did do 9 months working on site. Prior to that, I just worked in the office just as a designer. Didn't get dirty at all. But the 9 months on site was cold.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. There's so much variation. Like I say, I think you've helped tremendously with painting a picture, especially from your perspective in design engineering. So, thanks again.
You're very welcome.